Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another piece of artwork. We are doing a Japanese girl, like a geisha. This is the image we're working from today. This is like a grayscale, but we've got some colour in the flowers around the hair. So that's the one we're going to be working on today. The brush that we're using today is the Iwata Custom Micron, the CMSB V2 on a 0.18. Now I've changed the cup on this, so that's not the original cup. I've dropped the Takumi bottom body with the H&S top cup because we used the Takumi the other day with this style of cup on it, and I just prefer it more gravity fed down and into the brush than like the siphon suction where it pulls the air and pushes the paint up and into the brush. Everything else about the brush is standard, no other modifications. We'll be running around 25 psi, but I've got the Mac valve on the airline just to dial it in where I need to dial it in. Paints today is FW Inks. It's like a mustardy yellow. I've mixed the colour up to just drop a little bit of background. This looks white on the actual screen, but it's like a very sort of off yellowy colour, more like an ivory type white on this sort of background. So I'm just going to dust in the first piece. I've just dust in a little bit round the back of her on the white just to tone that back, and then we'll start working in the eyes and just sort of work outwards. I'll drop you on a time lapse at the side. I'm going to do a pause halfway through, tell you a bit about the brush, how we're getting on with it. So yeah, let's crack on, enjoy the tunes, grab yourself a drink. It's going to be a long one. See you in a bit. Right guys, little pause, little talk to you about where I've got to, how I've got to it, the way I went round it. We're using the Custom Micron, and I've done some, before I committed, I went straight over to my little test panel at the side and just tested the paint. Tested the pressure, tested the paint, because I wanted to run really low because there's some very soft shading on this. I didn't want to be blasting the air pressure up, I wanted to knock it right back and get the paint mix right. So I started off with just dropping a washed out yellowy white round the outside. It's probably not picking it up on camera, but it's very sort of light mist round the back, and then backed right off and just done a little pass over her face of the same colour, just to tone it back slightly. Because on the actual image, when I look at this on my tablet, I can see this colour across her face. It's not picking it up on the actual TV, but on the tablet when I zoomed in earlier, I can just see a very light tone of this coming across to her face. So I just dropped one little light pass over. Probably doesn't even look like there's anything on there, but I can just see it when I look up close. Then I started to mix up some Payne's Grey. Tested the Custom Micron to the side and it wasn't spraying right. When I was going up close, I'll always test it right up on detail, minimal trigger, just to see what lines I can get, hairlines. And it was literally like a line, but very misted out either side. And I thought, that's the needle. So I pulled the needle out, got some compound, pinched with a bit of kitchen towel, spun the needle up and just polished the front end, because it could have been a little bit of dried up paint or anything on there, just making the spray pattern just slightly go off and mist it out. Did that and it's tightened it up. Now working this, you've seen in that time lapse, I'm using shield, permanently using this shield. Best little shield that I've got, this one is, it really is, because you can just hold it up and you can just puff the paint in and create the little shapes that you want. So I'm going in really, really light on this. This is very light transition here, very soft transitions around here, and just working it to this tone, as you can see here. So we're going to get all this down in this sort of tone. Then I'll mix a transparent black up, very transparent thin black, and then I can just start to go back in with the shield, drop the blacks where the makeup is on her eyes, sharpen the eyes up, drop the highlights in, and then the eyes will just pop and they'll be done. Moving down, we can drop the darks in the nostrils with the shield, sharpen them up, and just start putting the sharps where they need to be. We can work the hair in as well. You can see here I've done like a pass on the hair, done some strands coming down very lightly, but there is a lot more darks in here when you look at the reference. So I'll do the same again. I'll work the hair to this tone all the way through. Same as this piece here, I'll work it to all sort of this tone and these sort of three sort of tones here, because there's a mixture of tones on the screen here. There's a light, medium and a dark, and then like a black to really separate that jawline and make that look going right in. So it'll bring this piece out more. Same as this here. When you're working really light, like you can see I've dropped this very light soft shade here. This will look non-existent the minute I put the blacks on this hairline here. Once these darks go in, these soft transitions here will look near enough white. It's because you're staring at white to the opposite side of that soft transition there. It looks like it's darker, but it's not until you put the darks in. This might have to go a little bit darker. So the first pass, very light. Go very, very light. A lot of beginners make mistakes where they go in too dark, too quick, and it looks very muddy on the image. It just looks too dark. And then they're trying to go even darker when it comes to this hairline. They'll do a pass here, too dark, because they're staring at white here. So they instantly put more and more and more paint down. Do your light pass and then start to, I'll do light passes all round, and then I'll just start to work the darks in on top and put the next layer on, put the next layer on, and just keep working that way. Try not to go in too dark too quick. Just back off with the brush, minimal trigger, and go in very light. Because we're working with a transparent as well, and I can't do erase techniques and things like this on this paper, I'm having to go really careful on what I do, because I can't erase this paper back to create and bring the highlight out. I've got to try and keep my edges away from my highlight points, because I can only drop these in with like the Posca paint pen. So if I needed to drop the highlights in her eyes, I have to drop them in on top like that and just pop them out. Same as on the lips. I've left a little area where it is on the actual screen of where the highlight is, and I can just go in now on top and just drop a little bit with the Posca paint pen and just pop them highlights out. So going in lighter is best. Take your time, always move over to your test piece at the side before you commit, because there's nothing worse than you've been painting, you stop, you've got tip dry, you're not checking your tip dry, you don't go over to your test piece and blast through, you go straight in on your piece of artwork, hit the trigger, and it splatters a load of paint over the centre of a face, and then you've got to start to try and get rid of that mistake, especially when you're working on some paper like this, because the minute that splatters on here, that's gone, guys. It's ruined, because you can't erase it off. If this was smooth paper and I had a splatter on the centre of a face here, I could go in and just lightly erase it out. But working on this, I've really got to be careful on what I do and the way I work around it. So we'll press on the next time lapse. It's going to be a long one, guys, this is, because I'm going to talk you through as much as I can as we move along and progress. See you in the next time lapse. Right, guys, another little pause, little talk through. Tell you what I've been doing. We've started to work all this in, going in nice and light again. Now I've been using a little bit of ripped kitchen towel, and you see me just moving this round, just getting some very nice soft little transition edges. It's sort of like a torn edge, and it gives you that real soft look coming round on this part of her sort of dress piece coming round. Gone in and just drop the darks around the flowers. Going to leave these pinks, all the pinks on the flowers, for the next episode. So we're going to finish this one here. We're still going in with the Createx illustration, Payne's Grey, and just working it very, very light with custom micron. Now the beauty of the micron is the trigger, guys, and the way you can just really, really softly move the trigger. It is so responsive for paint, and it atomizes the paint very softly, and the air speed, you get no blowback with this brush. It really does put the paint out in the air very, very soft, so you can just basically sketch it like you're using a pencil. Just look at your reference, really get on that trigger and just flick that trigger, and it just puts the correct amount of paint down. Very, very comfortable brush to work with. I could just sit with this all day now, but I'm going to pause this one here. Join me in part 2 when we continue up this part of the head with the greys, and we'll get this piece in, and then the last piece will be working in the flowers. We've got a little bit of like washed out red coming across her face here on the screen, you can see just coming across, and there's another piece just in here. We'll work in part 2, we'll get the flowers in, get the rest of the grey in, flowers in here, and then we can start moving on to putting the next layer of darks in, and you'll see everything just start to pop then. It'll just start to darken up, sharpen things up, go around, just do some nice little sharp edges with the darks, and it will be done. So a very sort of easy piece to do, just very, very lightly going in and working it around and just keeping your eye on your reference. Just pinpoint a bit that you work on. So I'd work on this piece here, look at your reference and just follow the shapes and just try and match them tones across as you're going across. Nice and easy. So I hope you enjoyed the video on part 1 of the Japanese geisha. We'll move on to part 2, and as I say, we'll get the rest of this bit done in part 2. Thanks for watching. If you're liking the content, don't forget, click that subscribe, press that notification, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Cheers.